Welcome to this video tutorial, and the first thing I'm going to show you is how you can change the text and the logo. So here I am inside the project file, and let's take a look at how we can edit the text. So if you go inside your edit folder over here in the project window, you will have a logo folder and a text folder. Inside this text folder you will find a text folder 1 and 2 compositions. If you double click to access for example text folder 1, inside this composition you can now go ahead and edit the text, or you can edit the text by simply double clicking on this text layer and changing the text like so. Something like that. Of course you can use whatever font you want, and let's take a look at the fonts here. This font is called Essence, and I believe it's available on dafont.com. So if you're interested, of course you can use whatever font you want. You can even add animations, and you can pretty much do whatever you want with inside this composition. You can even use logos, but for the example I'm just gonna leave it at text. Let's take a look at text folder 2, double click to access this composition, and let's change this just to text, or let's just leave it at regular font, and change it to text 2. And now if I go back in my render and we take a look here, we can see here we have text 1, right, and as it's flying past it, we're gonna reach text 2, and you can see that it looks exactly the same, almost the same as how it looks in the composition. The final thing here to change, or rather replace, will be the final logo. Alright, so in order to change this, you can go inside your logo holder, double click to access this composition, and let's see, here you can go ahead and simply delete the layers that were there, the previous logos. And if you double click inside this area over here inside the project window and navigate to your logo destination, you can then import your new logo. So let's import this guy and simply drag the file inside the composition like so. And here you can make whatever changes you want to your logo. So for example, you can scale this down, and let's select my selection tool, and while holding down shift I'm just gonna drag this and scale this down a bit uniformly. And of course you can also add a tagline if you want, and you can do whatever changes you want here. So this is just to give you an example. Whatever changes you do here will transfer to the original render comp. Alright, so if I take a look, you can kind of get an idea of how this will work. Alright, so just keep in mind that any changes you make in the holder composition will affect the render. And inside your render composition or render folder, you will have this render composition that the project starts up with. Alright, so this is already open, and this is the composition that I'm talking about, the render composition. Inside this composition you will also access your color controls. So if you go to your color settings layer, up here at the top you will have an FX control, and if you don't have this tab, simply press F3 on your keyboard and this will pop up the effect controls tab. Here we can go ahead and change the colors, and let's see, let's start with the background. You can change the color for the background, so let's maybe go with a green. Alright, let's change the first set of glowing lines, and let's maybe choose another frame here. And I'm also working at half. Let's take choose another frame maybe. I'm also working at half resolution, just this loads it a lot faster. When you make the final render, this will be full resolution anyway, so you don't have to worry about that. Let's take a look at the color settings. So the first glowing line set, we can change this. Maybe let's use a light violet color. Alright, so you can see changing here. If I undo and redo, I changed the second pair of glowing lines, change the color for that as well. Maybe go with sort of like a yellow. We can change the color for the road, so you can see that these elements you can have individual control over them and really control the final look. change the color for the road. Alright, and you can also play around with the lightness of certain colors or the darkness. You can see how this gives different results. Maybe just leave it at like a dark green, or rather maybe orange. Orange looks good. Change the color for the flare, so as the render goes on the road, you will have like these flares on the road, like over here, and you can change the color for that as well. So maybe I can use a blue, and you can see how different this looks already. Of course, the final colors will be the logo. So if I go over here, you can see that here where the transition towards the logo starts, you can choose different colors. So you have two sets of colors for these, and you can change the color. So maybe the first lines will be green and the second will be maybe orange. Alright, so this affects the transition and the final logo colors. And maybe for example, this is looking too bright because this is set to have resolution, so if I change to full, you will get the accurate representation of the colors. Alright, I can see that this is still pretty much too bright, so in this case you can just come inside the colors here and maybe just darken the tones. And let's also take a look at this green and maybe darken this, and this should give a less flashy effect. Maybe even more. Alright, so you can mess around with that until you get the result that you're after. So that's pretty much it. There's a sound effects tracks included over here, and if you don't want to export the soundtrack, you can go ahead and just delete the layer, but I'll go ahead and undo that. After you've done making all of these changes, you can go up top to composition, go to pre-render. Inside Custom AV, you can select your format and also turn on audio output if you want to export the sound effects as well. Hit OK, select your file destination and file name, then hit render and you're done. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks for watching.